Welcome to the Speaking Spirit podcast. I'm your host, Daisy Farrell, and I'm a medium, healer, teacher, and artist based in the Hudson Valley, New York. And I am so glad you are here with me today. This episode is super special. I'm very excited. I have wanted this guest on here for forever, honestly. So I am so happy to have her on here. So I have my wonderful friend Nancy Shapiro on with us today. And I'm just going to give you her little bio here. So, Nancy Shapiro is an Akashic Records reader, medium, and Reiki practitioner who began her spiritual journey later in life, influenced by her experience with grief after losing her mom at a young age. We'll chat about her path, her work, and past life insights, and other revelations from the Akashic Records, and how anyone can start exploring these powerful tools in a meaningful way. Hi, Nancy. Say hello.
Hey Daisy, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, you're so welcome. So, I've been doing actually this mini series, and I think you're aware of that. I've been doing this mini series about the connection between loss and how it opens us up to this whole world, right? Of mediumship, spirituality, spiritual ability, all kinds of things, right?
Absolutely,
And
absolutely.
this episode, I think, is probably going to be connected to that series as well, just after what I just read too. And, I think one of the main reasons I also just wanted you on here, a couple things here. First off, I just really wanted to, I think, just get to know your background more on how this
Mhm.
all unfolded for you. That was a big one. I was just so curious to hear about all of that. And also, one of the other things I wanted to just share with the audience is, you know, Nancy to me, I feel like you are so unique in the way that you work, and it's rare to see that these days. And I will also say, like, Nancy is unbelievable.
Oh,
Unbelievable, you
thank you.
guys. Like I
Oh, thank
needed to share that with everyone. I wanted to share you with my audience because book her right now. I mean,
Oh,
because she
thanks.
is literally mind-blowing. And the thing with Nancy is that she's just it's very natural and it's very different than anything I had ever experienced, I remember. And just the messages that Nancy gets is just so on point and just really, really validating and helpful on, in unfolding your path and anything that you're doing. One thing I did quickly want to just say too is, it's funny, the first time I experienced what you do, this was, like, shortly after my dad had passed, and
Mm.
I had always wanted to just, like, practice with you and just, see what happens, and so I did that, and it's so funny, like, I remember you started, and I was just shocked, like, I didn't, like, and I
Oh,
had forgotten to
really?
even, like, record, and I was, like, so
Oh,
mad that I
really?
didn't record you because Nancy will talk very fast,
Yeah,
and
definitely record.
I was just, like, not expecting that at all, like, it
Oh,
was not
that's
what I
fun.
was expecting to, like, have happen, but all the things that you had brought forward were so like, unbelievable, and I literally, like, certain things that you had said to me, I would repeat in my head over and over again, like, for almost over the whole year, and it
Wow.
helped
Oh.
me, and I'm getting chills actually, like, literally these little things that you had said, it helped me so much, more than I think you even know, just step forward
Oh.
in this unfoldment that I've like, just done in this past year that has been, like, really, really transformational for me. So, I'm just so excited to have you on here. I'm gonna stop talking now. So, I
Yeah.
really yeah, I really, really I
I
mean,
love
because
it.
I could
Thank
just
you. Keep going.
I mean, I can just keep, like, feeding your ego forever.
Yeah, right,
So,
exactly.
yes, okay, so please so let's start with this. I would just love to know, like, how did this all start? How did this all start? I just would love to know.
Oh goodness, where to start? Well, I don't even know where to start. I guess I've always been spiritual. As a kid, I loved my grandfather knew how to read playing cards. He didn't read tarot cards. They used playing cards. From his grandparents, he learned how his mother,
Oh,
grandmother.
wow. Mhm.
And so we would sit on this little card table and he would pull out the deck of cards and I would love it because he would always predict that I would find money. And if he didn't see something he would like, he would be one of those people who would reshuffle it until he did. And my
Yeah.
grandmother just hated it because she thought he would see something in it that wasn't good. But anyway, that was my introduction. And my sister had these little books around the house, so I was trying to learn how, your destiny and cards. I keep it by my desk, but I would try that. So I was always kind of spiritual. We'd go to palm readers as teenagers and things. And then things shifted. My mom was diagnosed with colon cancer when I was 17. And so we started going to the palm readers and people to see if they could see if she was going to be okay and would she, be all right. And long story short, she wasn't. And so after that, it shifted. I went to medium, tried to, and in those days, and I mean, this was in the late 80s, 90s, there wasn't the internet to find people. So it was,
Right.
and the people in town weren't necessarily honest. Um,
Yeah.
I'll say that. So it was hard to find mediums, but I was always looking to connect with her and connect on the other side. And I did tarot, and sometimes I felt like I was really connected through the tarot, but I wasn't, I was definitely not a medium. And I wasn't somebody who'd found, I was looking for signs, four-leaf clovers, things like that, but I wasn't
Yeah.
connecting. And so fast forward, the pandemic happened, and that's where I had a lot of time. I had become a teacher, a mom, but my kids were grown, and I was a substitute teacher. They weren't using us, and so I was going on tons of walks every day. And I stumbled upon one that talked about the Akashic records, and that got me into that, connecting that way, in addition to the tarot that I was doing. And then that unfolded, led me to Reiki, which then led me into mediumship. And now, and then that I just, um, I don't know, that just brought me to where I am today. But there was one
Yeah.
point, it wasn't that long ago, it was maybe 5 years ago. We were on a girls' trip to Berkeley Springs, West Virginia, and we love going to a tarot card reader there because he's the best, and or one of the best. And we came back to the cabin. I'm like, if we could have a dream job, what would it be? And I was like, I want to be Jeffrey. I want to be able to read people's, cards and be a medium for them so that I could trust that they're honest and know that I'm giving what I get like it's the truth. But we laughed because it could never be that. I wasn't like the Long Island medium or any of these people who it just came to them naturally since
Right.
birth. So anyway, it just was when we talk now and think, and see my progression, see where I am today. We just laughed at that. I had said that years ago. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
that's it in a long, big, giant
Well, right, of
nutshell.
course. Oh my god, I know. I mean, same. It's like I
But
could
yeah,
literally write like a 5,000 page book,
yeah,
like
yeah,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah, but I mean, a couple things that you said that I just love hearing here that I kind of wanted to touch on. I mean, first off, well, yeah, so two things that kind of stood out to me. It's like I love the thing that you're pointing out around, wanting to be somebody that people can trust.
Yeah.
And showing the world or just the people that you connect with that there is authenticity in this work.
Hmm.
It does exist. It's not always easy to find, unfortunately, and it can be really challenging, I think, and
Yeah.
disappointing, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But it does exist, and I think that's why I also love surrounding myself and kind of connecting with other mediums or people in this type of work that have that same goal, right? Of just
Right.
wanting to really bring quality to people and to show them that there is a side of this that is very genuine and can be helpful, right? And I think you absolutely do that in your work. And
And you
I
as
think,
well. Well,
yeah.
I've had readings with
Oh,
you.
thank
Like
you.
if you get that glimpse that you're with them
Mhm.
again, or
Mhm.
um that they're there, and that just
Yeah.
you like search for that few
Yeah.
minutes or seconds that you get to be with them again. And
Right. Right.
when people are doling out, I don't know, things that just aren't right, or they're asking for more money because your aura is this color and they can
Mhm.
change it because that it's
Oh
something you didn't
god,
sign
I
up for at the
know.
beginning of the session, and then now they're telling you, well, you need this or else. When you come out of it
Yeah.
with this fear that you didn't go into it with, it's just really
Oh, no.
awful.
I know.
But when you find the people who are true gems and amazing, it's just there's nothing like it. It's really wonderful.
Oh, I think it can be life-changing for people.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cuz I mean, I've had my, fair share of readings, and a lot of them, I was just kind of like, "Ooh,
Yeah.
don't know how to
Yeah.
feel about that," and I agree with you.
Yeah.
I don't think you should ever really leave a reading feeling worse.
Yeah.
The only time that I would say, and I think I've touched on this in other episodes, but To me, it's like the only time that I feel like that would apply is, is really just with grief. Because
Oh,
to me,
yeah,
there
yeah.
there
Yeah,
have been
exactly.
times where I've like had readings and I felt worse afterwards just because it kind of brought up this feeling of like,
Right.
ugh, this is how
Yeah.
I'm talking to this person now. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
And it also
absolutely.
feels fleeting, like you were saying, and it's like,
Right.
oh, I want more time.
Yeah.
But other than that, you should never leave, like you were saying, like with new fear, new,
Yeah.
these like paranoia, like all these
Yeah,
things,
there you
right?
go.
Like,
That's
because
exactly
I
it.
have, I totally
Yeah.
have left readings like that. And it's awful to me that people
Yeah.
have to experience that. And it's unfortunate to me too that and maybe one day this can change, but the sense that mediumship is just not, it's not regulated like other jobs, right?
Yeah.
People, right, like people that are doctors or whatever, like they have these licenses, they have these
Mhm.
different things
Mhm.
that make them quote unquote credible, right? And that's just not the case in mediumship,
Yeah. Yeah.
unfortunately, and it really
Yeah.
should be, because it's dealing with people at, if not even like a more vulnerable place,
Oh,
you
absolutely.
know?
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, hopefully that can get better, I hope, in time.
Yeah.
Um,
I think so.
yeah, and the other thing that you touched on that I thought was really interesting too, because this comes up a lot, was around how you were saying like, oh, well, that would never be me, because of like these people that have had this ability forever or whatever, right? And that's, I think that's fascinating, because I cannot tell you, there's so many instances where I've seen that,
Mhm.
where well, and actually that, I mean, that was true for me.
Yeah.
I grew up not thinking I was psychic or thinking I was a medium, or now knowing what I know, like, and looking back, I'm like, oh, right.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
I will say it wasn't like I was seeing dead people in my bedroom at night.
Right.
Like, that wasn't my experience. It just wasn't. And I think, some people do have that experience, which is fine, but it doesn't necessarily mean anything to me. And I think really it's like, it comes to you when it's meant to, and it's not that it wasn't there. I think it was always there. But I think it comes to us when we're ready for it.
I think so.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would love to know a little more. So when you started working with the Akashic Records, kind of what was that experience for you? Like, what, just kind of go into that a little more for us.
So yeah, I had heard about it. Sorry, I had heard about it on the podcast, and it was Ashley Wood's podcast. And she just said anybody can do it. You can tap right into your guides and get the information you want, about this life, past lives, all these things. I was like, no way. And I went home and fast
Mhm.
speed walked home and tried it. And yeah, I wasn't like streaming, channeling when I first went in. It was words, it was songs, but there was something there. And so I just had this passion to keep going and exploring that more. And I stuck with it. And so I ended up tuning in and hearing things. I ended up having to take a class actually because I wasn't so sure. I needed that extra backup that I was getting it right, and to be able to trust
Right.
myself. And so these two women, they were helping me find that what I was saying was getting was right, validating that, which was really key. But from there, I just kept going in and doing it daily and reading for. And when it wasn't until I started reading for others that I knew that I was actually getting it really right, because I was
Yeah.
saying like, oh, I'm seeing flower, like I would get these visually quick, seeing flowers, like I see flowers are really important to you and these scents and all these things. And this was a woman in Australia who had a flower farm. She makes herbal extracts and things. And like, how would I have known that? I didn't know
Right.
her at all. I only knew her first name. Somebody and she was in Japan, and I got the name of her little doll that she carried around as a kid, and this was her joy guide that she just randomly named Zeke or something, like just weird, unusual things. And so I
Right.
was getting insight into other people's lives and helping them and into my life. And um, yeah, I don't know if I'm answered your question,
No,
but
no, that makes sense. Yeah.
it was really interesting. Somebody was going in for me about a past life, and showing me how a gift that I had in a past life with herbs and enjoying mixing things, that took me in this life into creating Reiki and recipes and foraging, where I went with a mushroom guy. I call him a mushroom guy, he's a chef. And we looked for
Yeah.
mushrooms in the forest. So there's so many positive things that have come out of it just from exploring it for myself and others, sometimes their messages resonate for me too. So it's just helps me develop and grow as a human being, which has been really amazing.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that's the other thing that I think is so awesome about the way that you work is that it's very open. I feel
Mhm.
like you kind of just go wherever you want to go. It's very, very free flowing. I
That's
don't,
a word for it.
there's like no restriction really.
Uh-huh.
And that's really special because to me, I think that's one of the reasons your work is so like strong, like, and just the messages that you get are so incredible because you don't filter yourself a lot of like you really it's very expressive and I feel like there aren't a lot of rules that constrain the way that you work. And one thing that I'm curious about too is so I know so you're saying you went from Akashic Records and then so in the way that you work and the way that I've experienced the way you work, right? You tend to kind of go into this altered state of consciousness, which I mean I think we all do when we're working in this way, but
Mhm.
you will just kind of go and then you will talk and have this kind of stream of stuff come through you. How soon into this exploration did you start working that way? Or was it not like that right away?
Yeah, it definitely wasn't like that right away.
Mhm, mhm.
Actually, the first time I opened the records, I got like a bunch of weird words, which maybe that was light language. I don't know, and I didn't wasn't recording at the time. And then it went back into like just words and hearing actual songs that I know from whenever.
Mhm.
But I had a session with this mentor this morning, and he said, "I feel like you went through came in the back way in the back door like backwards than everybody else." And it's so true. Like I did not go about this the normal way, and so I just was kind of like just stepping stones, different directions, and going where it felt right and what was coming. And so in the beginning it was just getting these words and writing, like writing everything down. That was how I did it. If I was reading for you, I would just write everything down, and I would see images or pictures or hear sounds, songs, whatever. And it wasn't until about maybe 6 months in, I was doing a practice with somebody in a group, and she was really an experienced, whatever, practitioner. And she said, "You know what? They want you to start talking." And I was like, "I don't talk. I'm a teacher by trade. And so I talk all the
Yeah.
time to classes, but they're like, they really want you to speak instead of writing because the words need to come out much more quickly." And so that's what I started doing. I just started practicing that. And it wasn't until I think I met you at the retreat that was the first time that I really started taking it from there. And I used my phone. Somebody recommended there to just record on your phone, and that's when I felt this nudge in my throat to speak even more, and that's when it kind of just came out as it is now, and is
Wow.
always evolving. But yeah. So
Oh,
it
that's
took a
really
while. It
cool.
wasn't definitely people get frustrated because in the beginning they're not getting it a certain way or they want to do it like somebody else. And I just say, go how it feels right.
Yeah, I agree with you. No, I love that because again, to me, it's just showing it's like following the natural unfoldment
Mhm.
and where you're getting pulled, and it will be fine.
Yeah.
And I love that you touched on that. It's just like I think it's so easy to compare or
Oh
to
yeah.
get all caught up in, well, wow, how did they get all that information or how do they do this or whatever. And you really it's I mean, and that's true and right. I mean, anything in life, right? But
Absolutely. Yeah.
I think the best thing that we can try our best to do in that is just to be inspired instead
Mhm.
of, comparing.
Yeah. It's hard.
What, oh, that right. Oh yeah,
Because you
it's
see somebody, they're
yeah.
like, "Wow, that's really
Yeah.
cool how they do that," or they get this so
Right.
fast or that so fast. I wanna be like
Yeah.
that. But
Yeah,
yeah.
but I really I think and you can definitely touch on this too. I would say this whole spiritual just path in general and just like where this journey has taken me, it's really shown me trust in the process more than anything in my
Yeah,
life.
absolutely.
Right? And
Absolutely.
really that the unfoldment is perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect for you,
Yeah.
right? The
Yeah.
unfoldment of it is, the timing is right for you. And you know what? I think that makes sense even in just like for your unfoldment because there's a lot of power behind, when you speak. There's a
Yeah.
lot of energy in that. And it makes sense. I feel like if you like from the beginning started doing that, it would be like a lot, it would
I
be like
know,
too
I know.
much, right?
Yeah.
So I
So
think
true.
it makes sense, to have this kind of progression into things.
Exactly.
I mean, yeah, because I just feel like the same thing kind of happened for me as well in a lot of ways, right? And yeah, okay. So I also would love to know how did this like start to go into mediumship? Like where did you have a moment where you're like, "Oh, maybe there's something going on with mediumship here. Let me look at that."
Yeah, there was a moment.
Mhm.
Because through it all, my goal was to be able to connect with my mom, right?
Mm,
Because I knew if I was doing it myself, but that's the hardest is to, and even now to connect with your own loved ones, like to get
yes.
your mind
Yeah.
out of it and not think that it's you. That's just people
Oh
are like,
yeah.
don't you connect with your mom all the time? I'm like, I do, but she has to do it, so I don't know it's her. Otherwise, I just get too involved. That's a whole
Yeah.
nother story. But yeah, that what happened was I was reading Akashic records for other people, and we have what we call like a gang that gets together every other week to practice doing it. And I was giving her messages, this one woman, and she said, "You know, Nancy, you sound like you're my grandmother. The words that you're using, the way that you're speaking, the inflection, it just all sounds like her." And I'm like, I don't think I can do that. I'm not a medium." And she said, "No, I think you are." And so the next day, Spirit, the next day I had an Akashic record session with somebody, a trade, and she said, "I'm a medium, and I wasn't born that way, from I didn't know it is probably more like it and develop it, but
Right.
she said there's a book and you can learn how, and that was the first time I had heard. So it was probably about a year into this, in 2021, I think, or 2022 even, and after my Reiki and Akashic Records was pretty established. And I just, went to classes, learned more about I didn't know there was different kinds of mediumship. I didn't know there was evidential. I didn't know there was trance. So, I just knew there was the
Right.
John Edwards, the Long Island media, like that was all I knew, or the woman I went to in Georgetown. I just knew that that was their style, and I didn't know what was different about it or put a name to it. And so I just took it from there. But I did, as soon as she said that, you're connecting with my grandma. I'm a substitute teacher, and I was subbing at this school that happened to be about a mile from my mom's cemetery. And I say this lightly, like obviously it's more upsetting and all this, but and I'm not trying to make light of that. But I went to the cemetery, and I was like, "Mom, I can connect with you. Like, what do you have to say?"
Yeah.
And I was trying to tune into what I would get from there, and she's buried with my grandparents, and just felt I had a knowing that my grandparents were there, and even this aunt of mine was there, who I don't even think is buried there, but she came through and she's like, well, it was so her. She's like, why are you bothering with this? Get on with your life. Stop trying to connect with us. Like we're all good. You're good. Just keep going with your life." And it was so her. That's how I knew it wasn't me. And when I left
Yeah.
the cemetery, I was like, "Show me a sign. I'm going to the grocery store." Like, make the name of the woman at the grocery store be my mom's name. And it didn't happen, but I was standing at my desk back at the school after my lunch break, and this kid walked up to me, and behind him, on his back, on his sweatshirt, I'm getting the chills, was the word angel, angel, the 4 words, angel, 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 and then in big letters at the bottom, angel, in this,
Wow.
Gothic graphic design. And I just felt that was them, like my grandparents, my mom, and my aunt,
Yeah.
Ruthie, who was there, like, just showing that was their sign that they were there for me, and, I don't know. So, yeah, from there, I just took classes and learned how to develop that, and I think they've always been coming through in the Akashic records, I just didn't know it. Um,
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. Well, and I think that's the thing. I think that's what you end up realizing because I guess they would call this, they call it like latent mediumship, right? Which again, like I feel like we both kind of have that experience is just that, you have somebody kind of put the pieces together for you, and then it's like, "Oh, that's what that was." Or, "Oh, like, I think they were there all along." You know what I mean? But it's just like I just didn't recognize that that's what was actually going on. Because I think for me, it wasn't necessarily like I said, like it wasn't like I was, talking to people in spirit necessarily. But I guess I kind of was. I don't know, but I think about it and I just remember as a kid, I used to see my great grandmother and my grandfather in spirit, and I would see them as like ghosts kind of.
No,
And
okay.
I'd see them kind of like floating outside my window for some reason. Maybe just as a kid I just thought that that's like what it would be like, I don't know. But to me I think that really was them. You know what I mean? But I would,
Yeah.
cuz I would see them so clearly in my mind. And I would just be like, "Oh
Wow.
yeah, well they hang around me. That's like
Wow.
they're like my guides, or whatever." But yeah, and so I think it's such a thing. It's like it's there, but it's like we just get surprised by these little
Right.
pieces.
Right.
And I just think that's fascinating. Just because like in my case, it was actually through dreams
Oh,
that
neat.
started having people come through, and I
Oh,
I
wow.
really was
Yeah.
like, I mean, I've never done this
Yeah,
while
I
I was
remember you said
awake. I don't think I can do this. Like I don't,
Yeah.
and so I was shocked when that happened. So I'm also curious. So like what was like your first class in mediumship? Like what was like the type, or like what was it like?
Yeah, and I wanna say about the angels thing, I forgot to
Mm.
mention the part
Yeah.
of it, like, that was my mom's pet name for me was Angel, so that was
Oh,
another cute piece of
yeah.
that. But, my first class, the woman recommended Sharon Farber, so
Mm.
I got her book, and then I took I think it was like a weekend. It wasn't a retreat really, but it was a 2-day workshop. I took
Mhm.
that, and then I'm random, like
Yeah.
random finding people. I was watching. I didn't have formal training, honestly. I took Sharon's class. Yeah, but I wasn't. The problem was I wasn't fitting into. I didn't feel like I was because I had started with the Akashic Records and came in the back door or the sideways door. I wasn't fitting into this evidential spewing out, not spewing out. I don't mean to say it like that, but giving. And I know you need
Yeah.
evidential like this and that and this, but my evidence was coming through in the way that people were speaking. So they might say like, "Oh, like I remember I like playing golf or something like that," but they're not saying, do you recognize somebody who plays golf?" Because
Right.
that was getting me out of that, and it just felt really uncomfortable. So anyway, I was trying to go through YouTube videos and things. I think I stumbled upon Joseph, and so yeah, that's how it just has unfolded for me. Is it hasn't been classically trained, which I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's I guess good it's gotten me where I am, but, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
different than maybe other people, I'll say it that way.
Well, yeah, but I mean, I love that about you. And I think that's the other thing is that that makes sense. And it's funny. It's it's something that I, in a different way, but I kind of experienced that kind of back and forth. I want to say early on in my development, where my first experience with mediumship was very much a formal evidential training kind of base. Um, but then I kind of pulled away from it for a while and was kind of doing all these other things. And, one thing that's been very clear to me in just my unfoldment is I do a lot more than just mediumship, and I kind of connect to a lot of spaces beyond that. And because I would do a lot of like astral travel and like get different guides and past life stuff and whatever, but I would
Mm,
get all kinds of weird bizarre things that most people did not
yeah,
really relate to. And but I like that about me. I mean, I just feel like it's because it's unique, and I think it's good to embrace those things. And I think um it's just kind of finding what works for you, right? And
yeah,
I think it's true. I do think that evidential mediumship, it, for certain people, depending on like the way that they operate, it can feel kind of restrictive or restraining for them, or just that method can be, I think, I don't know, can sometimes just get in the way of that process to me, depending on how it is that you work, right?
yeah,
um so because I know other people where it's very much the same situation. And I think for me it was like it kind of works because I feel like I'm able to balance both in a way. It just depends on like what I'm doing essentially.
yeah,
But I like the structure for evidential work, because that's just works for me. But
Yeah.
I still like to keep all the other stuff that I do,
Right.
and I have fun with that in other things like my art or my healing or like other parts of a reading that I might do.
Right.
But that's what I think what's so great is just that you listened to that, and you trust that, right? Like, hey, I don't know if this is really fitting in for me, right? And you
Yeah.
embrace the way that you were receiving this stuff. And to me that's genuine, and you can feel it because I think that's amazing. And to me, and I think that's probably why you maybe got more hooked up with like Joseph and stuff. And when we were saying Joseph, we mean Joseph Siegel. Because in a way, I think you operate more on like a trance mediumship
Yeah.
way,
Yeah.
right? And so
Right.
just for our audience, like trance medium, I mean, honestly, that's probably a whole other episode, but trance mediumship is more so when we are embodying a communicator and speaking as them, right?
Mhm.
So it's very different, and honestly, there's a lot more gray areas within that as well
Yeah.
that I just can't even
Right.
get into right
Right.
now. But
Right. Right.
that's the very simplified way to explain it. And it's very true because you definitely do that, but that's where the magic is because it's so rare to me. I think that's
Yeah.
the other thing is that I'm very passionate about physical mediumship or just like these different types of mediumship that especially are just not shown in America, like especially in our
Yeah.
country. Like it's just not, people just don't
Right.
know what they are, and
Right.
I think it'd be so, like, people need to see these things because they're cool, they're real.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, but I love evidential. It just I think I was going where it felt comfortable, and
Yeah.
evidential is very hard. And
Yeah.
I also have trouble with my confidence.
Hmm.
It's always an issue. But just the nose and all that. And I don't think I had teachers who explained nose are good things because then you can go to.
Right.
So and that's a whole discussion on that. But yeah, it just wasn't. I was trying to go where it felt right, and I think
Hmm.
finding my own. I think that's so important in whatever spiritual, like you keep saying, is just to find what's right for you, what's a good
Yeah.
fit, and explore these other things. We've all tried maybe I'll just use Italian food. Like it's not
Right.
the thing for some people. They prefer Mexican or whatever. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, you got to find what is good for you on both sides, whether you're the practitioner or the person who's going to see these people. Everybody's not for
Yeah.
everybody.
No, exactly. And I think that's if anything, I think many people can probably relate to that are on this path. I know for me, that was very true. Like I tried everything. I was doing all these different things.
Yeah,
Everything you can think
me
of.
too.
Shamanism, trance, past life, Akashic records. I was
Right.
doing all these different things, and I definitely got a lot out of exploring those
Yeah.
things, but over time it finally did allow me to, I feel like I almost needed to step back, which I did. It's like I took a
Mhm.
step back for a while, and that's when then it was really just, the mediumship just kind of was highlighted and was like, hello, like this has been it the whole time. Like, let's go back,
Right.
let's return to that and let's simplify here. Right. And just stick with what feels the strongest
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
And then just committing to that.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
I do, yeah, I think it's important to explore all the things as long as you don't get too swept away by it,
Yeah.
right? Which is why I would
Yeah.
say it's good to sometimes take a break too, and
Right.
like, what am I feeling, is right for me? Because especially when we get so many classes, it's like, whoa, where
Right.
am I going here? Right. So yeah. And oh my God. And I
And
feel like we could
yeah.
talk for like 5 hours, but I wanna just wrap up with a few couple questions. One that I really wanted to touch on because I've been asking everyone this in this series that I was doing about, grief and loss and how it's connected to their work. I would love to know, how do you feel the relationship with your mom? Like how has that transformed since you stepped into this world?
So different. Back then, as an 18-year-old, she, gosh, don't cry.
Hmm.
She was the center of my world. She was the center of not only my family, with 4 kids and her husband, but also our extended family. She was the the center point and the focus and everybody's world. And when, at that time I thought, moms don't die.
Yeah.
She's not gonna, she was healthy, she was fine. And all of a sudden this colon can't to get a colon check, please, came out of the blue. It had no reason for that to happen. And of course she would beat it, and she didn't. So at that point, my relationship, she was front and center. I hadn't gone to college yet. She was my world. We were still in the, moms annoy you kind of stage.
Right,
But we
right.
were we were actually, I feel like we were starting to go out to lunch, and switch our relationship to be more, not the naggy mom positive, and more of a positive. And now I feel more, now, 30 some years later, yeah, I'm trying to do the math. I don't know.
Yeah.
Years later, I'm in my 50s, and she is, kind of that friendship. I feel like she's there as a supportive one behind me, like cheering me on. I think she's my biggest cheerleader. And believe me, she was a cheerleader back then too. But moms are moms.
Right, right.
Uh, I'm trying to get you on track, and so I just feel like she's become my biggest cheerleader, and I know that she's there. She tries, like, we do gallery readings, Kathy and I, and she Kathy's like, I think your mom is here, but can you ask her to come back later because we're trying to be here for the audience in front of us.
Right.
And but I think she just wants to say, that she's here, she sees us, and she's around, and it's just comforting. It's a comforting presence. Is it what I would have chosen? No. I wanted her there for my wedding to help me raise my kids, and to call her on the phone and just touch base. But it's the next best thing, and to know that she's one of my guides and helping me, and there. And yeah, so it's just reassuring and
Yeah.
comforting, and always loving throughout my life. Obviously, she's just
Yeah.
supporting me in a different way at this time.
Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. Yeah. And I mean, I definitely relate to that feeling of like, is that what I would have chosen? Not
I
quite,
know. Not
not
really.
really. And I feel that way with my dad. It's like, yeah, I don't really like that. Like,
Yeah.
it's not really what I kind of was had in mind here. But there are so many gifts to me in that connection. And I mean, some of the things that I think about is like the fact that I feel like my dad can be with me everywhere I go.
Yeah.
He can be
Yeah.
there.
Yeah. Yeah.
He gets to see everything, all the things
Yeah.
that I'm doing. I can always access him in a way, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And he's also, to me, one of the things that I think is so beautiful. It's like I feel like one thing that fascinates me lately is just thinking about how what we look like to them on that
Right.
side.
Yeah, that's
I
interesting.
think
I
it's
hadn't thought
so
about that.
fascinating, but I think it's also it's kind of beautiful to me where it's like they're able to see all like more of who we really are from
Mhm.
that perspective.
That's true. Yeah.
And it's really cool to me. And just how special that is that they're able to just have this beautiful perspective of our life and
Right.
our unfoldment and even how we're working, right? I think they all help with our mediumship and everything that we do.
Mhm.
It's fascinating to me. Oh, well, I love talking with you. And I mean we're probably gonna have to do this again because there's obviously more that I already want to ask you.
Yeah.
But is there anything that you wanted to just maybe share with the audience, like announce or anything, like any ways? I know I'm going to share in Nancy's links in all of the descriptions so you guys can access her. She's fantastic. Like I said, I highly, highly recommend her. She is
Thank you.
phenomenal. So please, yes, like click her links, follow her, do all the things. But yeah, if there was any upcoming events or anything that you just wanted to like share, feel free.
Yeah, I have, it's always finding the person who's right for you, but I do offer, beginners Akashic Records classes. For if you're just looking to find out more about it, I offer that, and the one-on-ones and gallery readings if you're in Maryland. I do that with another woman who's a medium, and yeah, just happy to answer questions if you're later in life, especially. And I've had things behind you, and now you're starting this and kind of coming at it, where your family and friends know you as this certain person, and you're now different. I have experience now with that, and coming out part of it. I think all of us have to experience that in some ways, but yeah, coming at it from a mom teacher point of view, happy to connect with people
Yeah.
if they have questions about that. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, I love
yeah,
that. Yeah, and Oh man, well see again, that's why we're gonna have to do like a part two. Just because again, like, yeah, coming out as a medium or just in what you do, it's a whole thing. But
Yeah,
I don't know, let me know what you think. But for me, yes, it's challenging. However, being on the other side of it, it's really rewarding and almost kind of what is it, like almost like boosted my confidence, if anything. Cause it was just like, this is me and
right.
I'm not gonna hide anymore. And
Yeah.
it feels really it feels empowering.
It does. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
process that's a long time.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't even know if I'm
Yeah.
fully out yet, to be honest, but, I'm pretty
Yeah.
pretty close. I'd say 90%, but,
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
empowering because then you see it wasn't so bad. It wasn't what you might have imagined it was going to be like.
Totally.
It's much better than that. So
Yeah.
anyway, but thank you, and you're so amazing. I just have to say the readings that I've had with you and your art is phenomenal. It's just really incredible what you do as well. So
Oh,
I
thank
always love
you.
talking with you and
Yeah. Oh, well, we will have to
experiencing
do
your
this
sessions.
again. And yeah, I mean, we're just going to do more things together. So stay tuned, everyone. And again, thank you for joining us today. We will be back, as I said, and I hope you have a beautiful rest of your evening, morning, whatever time it may be. And I will see you for the next episode. Bye.